Auction rates, are they a hoax? What do you need to know about them? Stay tuned. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to Morning Minutes. Myself, Michael Bergio, Mark Novak, episode 328, and we're talking about auction clearance rates. What do they mean? What do you need to know about them? Mark, good morning.
328, feeling great. Good morning, Jeff Luby. I'd love to know, Jeff would be a bit of an advocate on this as well. Clearance rates, hey, what do you reckon? What do you reckon?
They're definitely a tool that are used in a good market to really stimulate, encourage owners to activate, encourage buyers to activate and pay. Like, it's almost like it reminds me of interest rates. They're one of those mechanisms for really emphasizing and stimulating a market. But just like interest rates, just because they're low doesn't mean it's great for so many other things like an economy. So it's one of those things you really need to look at them, observe what they mean, how they calculated, and look a little bit further. So this morning's a bit of an insight on how they're calculated. What are the good things about them? What are the bad things about them? Because Mark, you brought a good point up about especially in a quiet market where it may not be a seller's market. And do you want to go through a bit of that?
Yeah, look, you know what? You off air, you were saying, look, good or bad, you like it because it's consistent, and any information that you can get consistently, you can join like a point-to-point analysis or definition or decision or whatever you want to do on that. But I was saying it's not necessarily a point-to-point, because I know as a real estate agent selling myself over a long period, I will use the auction technique in a really buoyant market or for a specific property, and I will not use the auction technique in a non-buoyant market. So in a way, you can use that measure from great market to great market, but in between, I think, is a little bit patchy. And you know, these auction clearance rates, guys, when people are looking at these auction clearance rates, some people are hanging up their whole business on the back of these auction clearance rates. The amount of time and energy that's going into auction clearance rates on the Saturday afternoon and a Sunday and for a weekly reporting, some people are just living off that and just think that that is the holy grail. And today's show is about just educating everyone to make a decision. Is it the holy grail really, or do you need to have other information in conjunction with that auction clearance rate to judge an auction clearance rate?
Yeah, and I suppose just go through where my I wouldn't say where I'm a bit of a stickler for it is you've just got to knuckle down a bit on the numbers. So the figure that doesn't really get spoken about is the non-disclosed situations. So they only give you the rate of the properties they know the status to, if it's sold or didn't sold on that sort of day. Now, if being in the industry, you know, when you've sold a property, RP data call you, like the property will sell, then like from the reporting company, they will call you and they'll be like, what happened? You're like, yes, I sold it. I'm great. Then they'll be like, you're the best agent in the world. Thank you. How much did it sell for? Now, when it doesn't sell, a lot of the time the agent doesn't take the call. They don't give the answer. Like, it just, they're looking at other stuff. And those figures don't get reported. So you only get the percentage rate based on the information they have. So if they only, out of 10 sales, they only spoke with 5 agents and 4 of them sold, then it's like 90% clearance rate. But when you actually go, well, what about the 5 we don't know? And a lot of the time they're not sold. So if you did 4 out of 10, if you assume they didn't sell for this example, then you've only got 4 sales out of 10 and it's only 40%, but everyone's thinking it's 90%. So that's the only thing where you need to look further, the undisclosed properties. And don't get me wrong, some of those undisclosed could be sold, but I think we all know as agents how quickly you change it to sold on the Saturday, or take the call, or market it as sold when it's been successful. So that's where there's just a bit of a gap. And I've seen Lewis Christopher on Twitter and Facebook does give you those undisclosed figures, and it generally sways the results by 10 to 15%. So if it's reported at 80, it is 65. While you say something, Mark, I'll see if I can actually find his latest one so people can understand.
Yeah, look, I think consumer sentiment is very, very important. If consumer sentiment is negative towards the property market, it always has a negative impact, a massive negative impact. And if consumer sentiment's positive, it's a cracker. And I think that what makes up consumer sentiment is figures like, a lot of it, like, mate, people's warm and fuzzy comes off the back of auction clearance rates. Shit, did you see the auction clearance rates was bananas this week? But people just need to know that there are particular areas of Sydney that just simply don't do auctions, and you're not getting that reporting coming back from auction clearance rates. Eastern suburbs of Sydney is very pro-auction. Most stuff gets auctioned, so that's probably a good barometer for the east. But that's probably not a good barometer for parts of the west of Sydney. So, it's really important to look at those clearance rates. And now there's a little bit of a pre-market evolution in the real estate property market, where deals are getting done before they're going to an auction. So yes, they're going to do an auction. Yes, they're going to sell it in 4 weeks' time. But for the 2 weeks prior to the 4-week beginning in the start of the campaign, we're going to put it out to our pre-market avenues, and those sales are not getting reported in auction clearance rates. If someone has an asking price on a property, probably sounds very obvious, but if someone has an asking price on a property and sells it, that's not being reported to auction clearance rates either. So I would probably suggest that less than a third of properties in the Sydney property market would be going to auction. So when you're looking at that cross-section of a clearance rates of auctions, you're not looking at the greater property market in Sydney or New South Wales.
Yeah, and I'll just bring up, so this is where we have a look at where you can really see, this is where I was saying where it's not necessarily always that accurate, but it is a trend and it's done the same way. It's like if you step on a broken scale at the beginning of your weight loss journey, and at the end, even if it's 2 kilos out, but you've dropped 10 kilos, it's still right. You can still track it. Like, that's where I sort of see this. There are flaws, but overall, it's great to track. So this Saturday, listed was 781, clearance rate 82%. Last Saturday was 80%. Last year was 80, Melbourne. So it's good to sort of track that. I think I saw...
Yeah, but Michael, 6 months ago, it was a scary rubbish. If you spoke to auctioneers 6 months ago, they did not have as much work. And the reason why they didn't have as much work is the market was not conducive to auction campaigns. The reason why the market wasn't conducive to auction market campaigns is we were in the thick of COVID. So if you're trying to measure today up against 6 months ago, it's a pretty hard measure. It's measurable, but the data's a lot weaker. There's a lot less volume because people opted not to do an auction.
Yeah. Like, this is good. I'll do this, SQM, where I love the data. Let me show it on the screen. I'll put me on it. Give me 2 secs, guys. So let that focus in. Sydney final clearance rate, 6th of December, about 60% after you take in all the undisclosed.
So it's still not back from where it was, huh?
Yeah. But I think it's pretty. I think it was always like that. So that's where I sort of said that says it's 80, and when you look at the others, it always sort of drops. So I reckon it's fairly fair. He goes into a lot more detail, but they do come out that week later. So, but it's good. It's good to check forward. I think the biggest one is that sentiment it offers the industry when properties do go to market. But keep in mind as well, Mark, we've spoken about many times on the show, you're taking those sort of A-grade properties to market. Like, you're taking almost the best of the best, the most unique, the wow factor properties. So it's really saying, well, out of the best, 80% sell, 90% sell. So you got to look at it as well. You made a good reference point. Days on market is a very good like, you can look at both. I don't think you ever look at one data point in isolation. You would look at your auction clearance rates. You would then also look at your days on market. You made a great point, Mark, with such an extensive pre-market.
I do make good points. Yeah,
you do occasionally.
Yeah.
No, quite often. So you look at days on market, which is recorded from realestate.com, but now we know there's big social media campaigns, there's big pre-market campaigns. Yeah. What's that one?
That says?
No.
Days on market, 10 years, DY.
Yeah. What is it?
Days on market, that's coming to an all-time low.
Yeah.
All-time low. DY is a good reference because there's 10,000 units, there's plenty of data to look at when you got so many units selling per month. But that's pretty low, eh?
It is. And
so what, just so people know what that means, what days on market means, it's 19 days. So if you list your property to sell with an average agent in an average market, it's going to take 19 days to sell it on average. Some will take 28, some will go in 8. That's a pretty hot property market. Now, guess what? Even that you can throw holes through. Any data you can throw bloody holes through. So even you could say, well, that doesn't include pre-market properties because that's measuring when it hits realestate.com and saying, or domain.com.au and saying, okay, from that point to the point of it coming off the internet.
Yeah, and the point of today is just to bring awareness to those areas to really look at. It's not saying don't look at them. It's not saying ignore them. It's basically saying where they're great, where they could do a little bit better, and just give you that really good overall. Because I 100% know at that friendly barbecue with friends, people who may not be in the industry, that is top. Like, they may not be talking about days on market, but they're definitely talking about clearance rates, and they're definitely talking about interest rates. So it's good to know a little bit more information behind those figures to allow you to make a great decision, or the best decision for you and your family or business when it comes to property.
And with all due respect, I don't think that the people that are producing the auction clearance rates data, this is an industry, yeah? I don't think these people that are producing the data are gonna help you identify that data. They will on the strong points, but not on the weak points. What do I mean by that? Are they going to tell you, hey, we're only reporting 1/3 of Sydney properties that are selling at auction, or a quarter? They're going to tell you that. Why? Because you're not going to read it. So at the end of the day, when it's not, they're selling a product. These guys that are delivering this data. So are we. But we're just saying, look, we've been at it a long time. We can look at those clearance rates and we can call bullshit, or we can say it's great. And today we're saying it's great, but you've got to know what you're reading.
Because, Mark, most of the people who produce the rates we look at are the portals. They make their money off you listing your property. So the better the market perception out there, the more properties go to market, the more properties paid to go on their portals, the more money they get.
Yeah.
So that's where we're just saying,
the guys,
a lot.
Portals are real for people that don't know, are realestate.com.au and domain.com.au. They're most of the guys that are producing this sort of information. They've got their own interest. You're right. They've got their own interest in an angle that they're producing that data on. But that pre-market where we're selling a bucket load of stuff that's not hitting domain or not hitting realestate.com.au, that's simply not visible and not being promoted by anyone but the individual agent.
Yep. And that's why I like SQM Research, or SQM. He's been on Tom Panel's show a lot with data. He's completely independent. I believe he's looking to sort of take on that RP data and price finder. I subscribe to him, and I love the data he produces. It is completely
Really?
yeah.
And
Anyway,
SQM, is
yeah,
it a website?
yeah, SQM Research. I'll pop it in there for everybody. It's definitely worth checking out. But I think that's a wrap for this beautiful morning episode.
It is a cracker. It's 20 degrees in Sydney, and it is blue skies without a cloud.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Back tomorrow morning. Cheers.
Love you guys. Hope we helped you. Thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Alessio.